Hey everybody, welcome back to Electronic Cafe. Today's album review is on the Smiths' last album, their fourth album, Strangeways, Here We Come. I remember back when this came out, my brother had the poster of this album on his wall. Um, and it's still a poster that he has in his garage. Oh no, that's actually a different one. No, it's a different Smiths poster he has in his garage. Every time I go to his house, well, not every time, but I'll joke with him. I was like, can I have your Smiths poster? Since it's in the garage. But that's a poster he's had since he was like probably 40 years. But he used to have this poster as well on his wall. Um, but I think back in 1987, like Smiths was at an all time high in our household. Like I've said this before. This is the second time I'm reviewing a Smiths album. I reviewed Queen is Dead, and I gave it a 72 out of 100. It was a very good album. Um, I thought I would actually rate it probably closer to a little bit 80s, but Queen is Dead has some great tracks and it has some really lousy tracks. And I like a lot of Smith's songs. There's a lot of songs that I like by Smiths. I'm talking about when you add up all Morrissey songs and the Smith songs, I don't know, maybe 70 songs I like by the Smiths. I'm just guessing. There's so much B-side work. Like, I mean, if you guys don't know Rank and you guys don't know Louder Than Bombs, you buy those two albums and you're almost content with the Smiths. And yeah, there's other songs on there that aren't on there that are still good, but talk about two pieces that have the most of the best Smith songs. And those two albums are pushing like almost 60 songs because there's like 25, 30 songs on each one. It's almost pushing 60 songs, and there's not many that I don't like on there. I would probably be safe to say maybe two or three. There's a lot of good songs on there, but on some of their albums, they have some. Queen is Dead, for example, has like two or three songs that I very under um, under the level of what most of their music is for me. But I always say this. Well, I don't always say this, but I think of any band that was being played mostly in my household that hit everybody was the Smiths. Actually, probably I take that back. Was probably Pet Shop Boys was first, but maybe The Cure second, or Depeche Mode, and maybe Smiths third or fourth. But as far as like my brother and my older sister playing any one artist more, there was nobody they played more than the Smiths. Like I grew up with the Smiths and I knew all their songs even before I ever even decided to get something Smiths. I remember I took all of my sister's albums that she had, which was all of them. She had all of them and she had most of the singles. If there was any artist that she had the most records of, it was Morrissey and the Smiths. She probably had around at least 20 to 30. She had all the singles, the 45s. Um, she had them all. And so I think of all the records that I saved of hers because I took a lot of her records. I should have took the Smiths, but I think I didn't because as she was sort of getting out of having vinyl in the late 80s, I can remember it was like 1989 was the last time my sister bought an album, and I think it was um, Morrissey's solo album that year. I think it was Viva Hate or Bona Drag. I think it was Bona Drag she had on vinyl. So maybe it was 88. That was the last year she bought vinyl. Although she did buy Erasure's Wild the next year, so maybe that was the last record she bought. It's funny I remember these things like 35 years ago. But it seemed like because I go through a record collection was probably around 200 pieces, and I eventually they sort of navigated to my room because she didn't really care about listening to records anymore. And I remember taking Oliver Smith's song and making like three 90-minute greatest hits of Smiths, and that's all I would play when it came to Smiths for the next 10 years because I was still playing cassettes through the 90s heavily. And so I never really bought any, never felt like I never bought any Smiths records until probably 2010 when I got their records on vinyl because they were reissued, and sort of got some compilations on CD just because they were good compilations that had most of their greatest hits. And but so I mean, the Smiths were just played so much in my house. This is their fourth and final album. I mean, talk about a 5 year period. Was there any what band in the 80s had as much impact then and going forward in a 5 year span, a 5 year career that the Smiths did? It's funny to think like how much music they actually made. You think, oh, well, they made 4 albums in 5 years. Well, there's actually a lot of songs they made in 5 years. I mean, I'd be curious to know how many Smith songs were made in 5 years. Maybe 100, 120, 140, and just an amazing output of quality in that 5 years. And hats off to, I mean, I know Morrissey gets a lot of slack, but iconic voice and so underrated is Johnny Marr. Just a magician on the keyboard and a magician of making guitar riffs and making structures of sound songs of the progressions of his guitar arrangements on songs are amazing. It just I don't know anybody who's made as many great guitar songs and guitar riffs. But I'm not a guitar riff. It's not just like a solo or it's the way the songs are. Like the volume is nothing, just the guitar of it, and then the changes, and then the guitar of it. So that overall is sort of like the guitar structure of the song. I guess if I could call it something. So as far as like this, how many structures great structure songs he's done, and because not I'm just talking about like guitar riffs or parts or solos. It's just like he knows how to make a catchy guitar song. You know what I mean? Just the background to what Morrissey's singing. I don't know how else to put it, but there's just like a lot of classic songs on this album still, and some of them are some of the most catchy ones they do. And that's kind of the great thing about Morrissey, right? He's so sarcastic, yet he's so clever with the songs. Like who's making songs that are clever and catchy about girlfriend in a coma, death of a disco dancer, unhappy birthday. You know what I mean? Like who made those songs clever? Like you would think you hear this, you read what the song's called, and you would think, oh, it must be really depressing, and then it's like really happy, right? So that's kind of the great thing about the Smiths is, and Morrissey is they're so clever with their song titles and their songs, and turning them into some sort of happy indie song from what Johnny Marr does with his guitar. When I think of the opportunities of the albums, I can't really think of any opportunities of the albums. Just some songs you'll like and some songs you won't. That's just how the Smiths are. Sometimes Morrissey will grate you, Grate, with his lyrics or his maybe lackluster performance at times, or maybe outstanding performance at other times. So whatever puts you off about Morrissey, that's going to be so different from person to person about what songs you'll like or what albums you like and which ones you don't. When it comes to my opinion, a rush and a push and Land is Ours, I give 3 stars. Something I couldn't finish, 3 stars. Morrissey sings here specifically more, and it's more of a blues guitar on here. You can sort of tell in this album that Morrissey's sort of taking over the lead here and becoming more of a solo artist, and that's because they sort of broke up during this album, and you can kind of hear it that Morrissey is kind of taking the lead here. This sounds more like a Morrissey, even though Johnny Marr's guitar is on here. It seems like this is more of a Morrissey solo album featuring Johnny Marr than a Smiths album. Especially with some of these songs, like the Death of a Disco Dancer, 2.5 stars. Although it has some great parts, some cool sounds from Johnny Marr. Girlfriend in Coma, 2.5 stars. What a riff on this song, right? It's just, Stop Me If You Think You've Heard This One Before, 3.5 stars. Last Night I Dreamt That Somebody Loved Me, 4 stars. My favorite song on there. Strings, atmosphere, the crowd noise, the build-up, the guitar, everything is great on this song. Unhappy Birthday. This is one I call one of those campfire songs. It just kind of has one of those acoustic sing-along songs, and you're just like, unhappy birthday, 'cause you're beautiful. It just kind of has one of those kind of campfire sing-along songs. 3.25 stars. Really good track, though. Paint a Vulgar Picture, 2.75 stars. Death at One Elbow. Death at One's Elbow, 2 stars. I Won't Share You, I like a little bit better, 2.5 stars. So 29 stars divided by 10 songs is a 2.90. So that's right around 70. I gave it a couple, or right around 68. So I gave it a couple extra points. I think it's one of the more consistent albums, as far as the albums are concerned, of the Smiths. I gave it a 70 out of 100. I think all the Smith albums are pretty consistent, but I think where the gold is on Smiths is the extra songs, right? Some of my favorite Smith songs aren't on. Well, I take them back. Probably my favorite 5 songs by the Smiths are on albums, but my favorite songs 6 through 10 aren't on Cure albums. I mean, aren't on Smith's albums. So that's just shows you how much great music they have that aren't on their albums, and especially in my opinion. But yeah, just probably a tick under Queen is Dead for me. I gave it a 70 out of 100. Queen is Dead, I gave it a 72 out of 100. Probably because the highs are so high on that album. I mean, it has Light That Never has a Boy with the Thorn on His Side. It has The Queen is Dead, and it has The Light That Will Never Go Out, which are 3 of my favorite Smith songs. Keep saying The Cure. But just an amazing band. Johnny Marr is just so underrated. Just an amazing guitar player. I think he will go down as probably the best guitar player of the 80s. When everything's all said and done, probably the best guitar player of the 80s. One of the more unique ones, and I'm not just talking about like Eddie Van Halen, I can do this on guitar. Like, the dude can write catchy guitar riffs like nothing. Like, he wakes up probably thinking of one and does it. Like, it's just his guitar sound is so cool and so unique and legendary. And it's just, that's what made the Smiths, right? Is Johnny Marr's guitar with Morrissey singing. The rest of the band was tight too, but man, Johnny Marr and Morrissey, just legends. But yeah, 70 out of 100. Very good album. Strangeways, Here We Come. Curious to know your opinion. What's your favorite Smiths album?